Good morning, honorable members, and good morning to the Deputy Minister, and good morning to the senior officials of the department and the acting DG Advocate Makobe, and good morning to colleagues and everyone in the platform. We can start the meeting, honorable members. There is an agenda before us with two important items. There's an agenda before us, honorable members, and with two items for today, and one will want to apologize. We have removed the presentation on Brand SA. There's a letter that has been submitted before the portfolio committee and the department, the entity, and with the Deputy Minister have requested that they reschedule their presentation and present before this portfolio committee next week, honorable members. Let me then welcome everyone. And honorable members, the meeting is an important one in our committee program, as it deals directly with the state capacity, accountability, and South Africa's developmental trajectory, both domestically and in relation to our continental and global commitments. And honorable members, the committee is constitutionally mandated to exercise oversight over the work of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and its entities. And it also includes not only interrogating performance and expenditure, but also assess whether the systems of planning, monitoring, and evaluation are effectively strengthening government performance and service delivery. Honorable members, the committee will then receive the briefings on the South Africa's progress on Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals and SADC priorities. And of course, the second presentation, the head of Department Performance Management and Development System, including findings and challenges and interventions thereof. These matters, honorable members, are interconnected. They speak on how we plan and how we implement and how we measure performance, and ultimately how government delivers to the people of South Africa. In particular, the committee attaches great importance to the briefing on the HOD performance management and development system, because this system is critical lever for building a capable, ethical, and developmental state, as envisaged in the National Development Plan. While we note efforts to improve compliance, alignment, and reporting, the committee will always remain concerned whether the system is delivering real accountability and improved outcomes, especially in light of ongoing service delivery challenges, and of course, some minor failures and persistent Auditor General's findings in some departments. Today's engagement, honorable members, should therefore move beyond a description of the system and focus on impact, consequence management, and areas that requires reforms. And also, honorable members, we expect frank reflections on what is working, what is not, and what will be able to change going forward. And I will wish honorable members to emphasize that the committee approaching its work in a non-partisan and solution-oriented manner. And however, we will not shy away, honorable members, from asking difficult questions when necessary. Oversight and in itself, it is a means to ensure that government programs translate into tangible improvements in people's life. And we will always, honorable members, encourage this department and its entities to provide clear, honest, and evidence-based responses to members' questions, including timeframes and commitments where shortcomings are identified. And honorable members, I will always request that as we engage, we must conduct ourselves in a manner that is orderly and also respectful and focused, allowing everyone the opportunity to contribute meaningfully. And therefore, honorable members, you are all welcomed, and the meeting is opened. And I will then move to apologies. I know there's one apology that I've received, the one of the Honorable Ghana, and also there's an apology of Honorable alternate, which is Honorable Chabalala, and also there's an outstanding apology of Honorable Dunjwa, and then there's an apology of Honorable Trolip. Those are the apologies that I have received, and of course I understand it's Wednesday, and the minister, there's a cabinet meeting today. The minister today is not with us, and she was with us last week, and will then also take that apology. And I will take hands, honorable members, now that the meeting has been opened for the adoption of this agenda. Okay, I see there's a hand of Honorable Mani and followed by Honorable Apiri.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, I'm raising my hand to move for the adoption of the minutes, and I note not of the minutes, adoption of the agenda, and I note, Chairperson, the removal of that item of Brand SA. I obviously would have had questions on them, but then in anticipation of their submission, Chairperson, I want to ask that can the committee just convey just one question for now for Brand SA? Just one question, just to say, when they come to present, can they make the case why is Brand SA not incorporated into Tourism SA? If they can start there, then we can have a discussion. But otherwise, with that removal for today, I move for the adoption of the agenda as it stands. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Mani. Honorable Apiri.
Chair, thanks very much, and a very good morning to yourself and the Deputy Minister and the department leadership. I raise my hand to second of the agenda and the accepted apologies. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Apiri. Thank you to yourselves, honorable members. And I'm then, honorable members, handing over now or inviting the Deputy Minister to do the opening remarks, and then he will hand over then to the acting DG in terms of the presentations, the two presentations. Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Seiso Mohai.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning again to all the members of the Portfolio Committee. I am with the acting DG together with the senior managers in the department, and I think the acting DG will have the opportunity to introduce. Thank you for affording us the opportunity to brief the Portfolio Committee on the implementation of heads of department, performance management, and development system, and the status of 2024-2025 annual assessment and outcomes of recent evaluation cycles. Furthermore, we will brief the Portfolio Committee on South Africa's progress in implementing three important international regional development frameworks. That is the African Union Agenda 2063, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the Southern African Development Community Regional Indicative Strategic Development Plan, referred to RISDP. Will also flag areas that are challenges in these areas, as the committee is aware that together with the Planning Commission, our department coordinates and monitor and report of these strategic agendas. Importantly, we'll also provide analysis undertaken by NPC, what it reflects currently. We share with the committee on those areas with regard to percentages. And in 2019, Cabinet approved a national coordinating mechanism for UN and SADC development agendas. The objective of the mechanism is to ensure that government departments and civil society, private sector and research institutions can, coordinate South Africa's implementation of these global and regional commitments. So oversight is provided through interministerial committee located at the center of government, which ensure that these agendas are reflected in national plans and reporting processes. In addition, the National Development Stakeholder Forum provides an important platform for consultation and engagement with non-government stakeholders. So we will also, I think, flag areas of challenges with regard to the review of HODs, PDMS implementation, and what are those recurring challenges. I think the committee, our team will take the committee into confidence on those areas and what we're proposing. A persistent concern is the high number of acting heads of departments, currently the high level of acting heads of department, currently 36 posts, representing 23% of the total. Extended acting appointments, we know that it is not a good measure of organizations when we have many acting positions, because it may impact on stability and accountability. And this is an area that requires focused attention. Chairperson, we're looking forward for the fruitful deliberations with the committee and areas of progress that we'll share and challenges. So I would request through you, Chair, that the Acting Director General is ready to get us underway with your permission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to the honorable members. And thank you very much to the Deputy Minister for the opening remarks. We're going to start then with the presentation on the Head of Department's Performance Management and Development System report. We'll look at the findings and the interventions that we're making as a department. So I'll ask Advocate Gugu Timani to lead us in the presentation.
Morning, honorable members. The chair of the portfolio committee and all the members, the DM, the acting DG and colleagues on the platform. We are here to present the PMDS, that is the Performance Management Development System of the Directors Generals and the findings and the intervention as per the requirement that comes from the portfolio committee. The slide 2 is more of a background, the presentation outline in terms of what is that you are going to be presenting. Maybe let's go to the next slide. This is more of a background. If you remember, honorable members were in portfolio committee, I think 3 weeks ago, we had also presented on a high level on the performance management, but we'll try to be a bit detailed this time. But this is more of matters of emphasis from the previous presentation to say the PMDS system directive was implemented on the 1st April 2018. And as DPME, we are responsible for that implementation of the PMDS. And obviously, TPSA, their leader in terms of the policy on the PMDS. We are responsible for the implementation of national sphere of government under the leadership of DG in the presidency. As we know that DG in the presidency, she's a DG of DGs, and we do provide support in different phases on the PMDS. Currently, the team is working with DG Baleni in terms of supporting her on the evaluation because the DGs are being evaluated currently. We also thought that we need to clarify in terms of what about the role of the provinces. In terms of the provinces, it is the offices of the premiers, the DGs of those provinces who are responsible for the implementation of HOD, PMDS in the respective provinces, while the Public Service Commission, as a Chapter 10 of the Constitution, they facilitate the DGs in the 9 provinces, performances as well on the issues of DG Baleni as a DG of DGs in the presidency. So the PAC is responsible for that aspect. There are 4 phases in terms of the performance management. There's a performance contracting stage, which is due by April. So the DGs will be embarking on that process. And then there's a mid-year reviews that must happen between the minister and the DGs, which is required from October to November. Then we have the annual assessment from 1 October to 31st December. Then there's an issues of evaluation. I've already alluded to say we are busy with that process, and we are supporting DG Baleni in that manner. And then there's a system as well, which was developed and which is managed to enhance the performance, the productivity, and everything that is related to the PMDS. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, the system is operational 24/7. The one being asked you to say the system was off and all that is operational 24/7. And we've already said that DG Baleni, she's the one who chairs the evaluation of DGs, and we are supporting DG Baleni, but we wanted also to outline that there's an NMO process, the National Macro Organization of Government, where it was resolved that the team that I lead on performance management, they are migrating to the office of the president in the private office, in the office of DG Baleni in particular, so that they'll be able to help DG Baleni in that space. And that is also linked to the professionalization of the public service. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, we thought we need to share in terms of how the DG's performance is crafted. We have dimensions. There are 4 dimensions. There's an employee performance dimension, which is 40%. Then there's key government focus areas in that DG performance, which is 20%. And then there's annual performance plan, which is 20%. And then there's auditors general, which is 20%. Just on a high level, on the employees dimension, DGs are required to craft the key strategic result, key areas that are aligned to the NDP, MTDP, ministerial performance, and other developmental instrument in government. And they need to be outcome-based and results-based. And I know that there's still some challenges there, but I think we'll respond on that one when we respond on the issues of the intervention. And then on the key focus areas, they are more on the supply chain management, just to make sure that the DGs are managing the UIFW in their respective department, including the payment of suppliers within the stipulated time of 30 days, issues of diversity management and transformation, making sure that the country is going towards the transformation in terms of women in senior management services, the employment of young people, person with disability, including the procurement expenditure. So there's that expectation from the DGs. And then there's an intergovernmental relations, which is your integrated governance, where DGs are being assessed how the department integrates with other spheres of government, whether it's province, national, the MINMEC, the IMC, and other structures of government. And then there's an international and regional integration, which is lastly, it's about how the DGs are engaging with the other international development partners and the issues of the last one is about the issues of the vetting of officials in the respective department and the contractors, and to mitigate the issues of security risk and threats. And then the dimension on annual performance plan, it assesses the number of APP targets achieved by that department. 80% and above is rated at level 3. And then there's an assessment, which is the last dimension on the Auditors General, which assesses the 80 findings. When there's an unqualified opinion without findings, which is a clean audit, the DGs are rated at 4. When there's an unqualified with matters of emphasis, they are rated at 3. So those are the dimensions that DGs are assessed on. Next slide. Yeah, we have tried to outline what are the findings, because that's what the assignment is saying. What are the findings on the report on PMTS, and what are the intervention? I think the biggest challenge, and I know that it was also raised by Honorable Mani and other members of Parliament, that the issues of poor alignment between the country's planning priorities and their DG's performance is something that we have been identifying because we are responsible for the implementation of PMTS. It's one issue. And then the other issue, the findings, you discover that the APPs are not result-based and not even contribute to the improved service delivery. It's just a submission of report, but on the ground, there's nothing that is happening. So those are some of the findings that we discover when we analyze the performance management of DGs. And some of the indicators, they're just input indicators rather than outcome, developmental and impact-based. And they are more just operational kind of the performance management, which they are not much of a strategic imperatives. And then you'd find that some of the performance management of DGs or contracts, they duplicate what you find on the APP. Why the dimension are very clear that you just need to have 20%. So there you end up having a lot of double dipping into other dimensions, like the repetition of HE findings in KRAs. So those are the findings that we get on the PMTs of DGs. But in terms of the intervention, we want to inform the members of Parliament that we have developed, as DPME, we have developed guidelines, training manuals and videos to assist the departments with crafting of performance agreements. And then the issues of training as well, because there are users of the system, including the ministers, the HOD, the chief of staff, and coordinators in the different departments. So the issues of training, from time to time, we do train the user, but I know that there's a formal training that you're working on. I think I'll touch on that one. And one of the intervention by the DPME, lastly, on APPs, including the performance management, it's a collaboration that we have initiated with HESA to say what we have observed. The department, they just plan for compliance, but not for development, not for outcome and all that. So we have that collaboration where already the HESA, they've started assessing all the departments in terms of the compliance and make sure that before they are tabled in Parliament, there are comments. Even at DPME, we receive the comments from HESA to say, can respond on this APP target, how it cannot be a percentage and all that. So that work has started so that we deal with this issue rather than having only a compliance, but we still want to make sure that the departments, they plan something which is more results-based. So there's that collaboration and the colleagues are working very hard, particularly at the planning branch, to make sure that there's that alignment across government. And then the other intervention, we do conduct quality assurance on all performance agreement submitted. The department, they submit to us, and the team, they sit down, go through the performance agreement of the DGs, and then they provide the feedback to say, but there's no alignment here. Can you address this? Can you amend here and resubmit? So those are some of the intervention that we have put in the system to make sure that there is an alignment. And then the feedback addresses issues of alignment. Obvious, I think I've already said it. And then if it happens that the DGs are not doing what is expected in terms of being developmental. Even during the evaluation as well, they are being rated low. In terms of their scores. I want to also outline to the members of parliament that of portfolio committee that there is a review of the PMDS system. And we have made very critical input because we are implementers of the system, but also we got the comments from those who are using the system. So that directive of PMDS, it will introduce standardized KRAs which addresses the issues of leadership perspective, capable, ethical, and developmental state and strategic focus, including the consequences management clause, because we said even if we call departments to account, but we still feel that there must be a clause on consequences management, and we know that the AG as well will make sure that it gives findings in case that clause is not implemented. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, those were the first dimension findings. But if you go to the key government focus areas, in terms of the finding, because they are being assessed on the SEM, diversity and transformation, integrated governance, and minimum information and security threat, you still find departments where they get findings in terms of the UIFW, the irregular, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure. It's one of the findings as well. You still find departments who are not paying the suppliers within the 30 days requirement. Issues of transformation as well. You still get departments who struggle to make sure that they appoint women, persons with disability and youth. But I know that there is a big movement on women, but we're still not doing well on the young people and the people with disabilities. And I know that we have shared that in the previous portfolio because we are also monitoring the priority 3, and this is an outcome of the priority 3 of building of a capable, ethical, and developmental state, the issues of diversity and transformation. On the issues of integrated governance as well, you still find where DGs, they just say we have attended so many meetings and all that, but we are more interested to say what were the resolution from that meeting and how are you implementing the resolution. So we still get those findings where they just report on the meeting that they've attended, whether with SADC or with municipality and all that. In terms of the minimum information security standard, there is a backlog. It is a challenge. We still get a backlog of some have been vetted, but the report have not come. It is an issue, but also other departments, they struggle to assess the newly appointed contractors. But I think on the appointed contractors, it's not much of a challenge, but there's a challenge on the issues of the backlog, particularly from the State Security Agency side. Then in terms of the intervention on the SEM, I think we have said it in the previous portfolio committee where we were presenting on the national and provincial capabilities to say we are really strengthening that, make departments, all departments are required to have the audit action plans. The DPME, we are working with Treasury just to make sure that we strengthen that part. There must be an accountability to say you got these so many findings and how are you addressing on all that. We are working with National Treasury on the issues of UIFW. In terms of and particularly on the other issue on the payment of supply, the health sector is still a very challenging space, with lots of systemic findings, the social, the medical, legal cases and all that. It becomes an issue, and they even struggle to pay the supplies within 30 days. So that implementation intervention, and we have already said it in the previous portfolio that we are resuscitating the management performance assurance tool, that is an MPET, and it will focus largely on the health sector because I think the risk largely is coming from that aspect. On the diversity management and transformation, we have already alluded that we are monitoring priority 3 of building of a capable, ethical, and developmental state, and this outcome is also found on the MTDP. We have since convened the Department of Women because they are leading on this. We have convened Department of Social Development, there was DPSA, there was Treasury on the procurement spend. We have resolved that we need to make sure that we invite other department like your Department of Transport, because most of the disabled people, they are using transport, stats essay, so that we can understand the issues of statistics, whether we are moving or we are not moving. Department of Labor and other key departments. At the end, we have resolved that we must have a kind of a roadmap to address the issues of youth and person with disability. You know, most of the young people are not employed and all that. It is a challenge, which we said we need to make sure that we focus on it. In terms of the integrated governance, we have informed department to say, you need to focus and report on the resolution rather than to say we have attended the meetings and all that, and there must be that assurance process that is happening. And we have noted a notable improvement in this regard. We thought let's outline that aspect. On the issues of the backlog, on the issues of vetting, the issue, I know that we are supposed to have a meeting with JCPS cluster. They had requested that it needs to be postponed. We wanted to discuss this issue, but there's an issue on the ministerial cluster as well, because they are doing well on the ministerial cluster as JCPS, but we wanted to learn from the governance, because we are reporting on the governance structure. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, there's some of the findings as well in terms of the auditors general dimension and APP's dimension. We still get the lack or insufficient implementation of corrective measures on AG findings, where AG would provide a finding and some department, they are not dealing with the findings. It's still a challenge that we have discovered as well. And in some instances, we have discovered that there are departments which just set weak targets to overperform, submission of report and all that, not real developmental or strategic issues. Then it becomes a problem, obvious, because I think they underplan and overperform. It's a challenge. And then the issues of general findings, some departments are non-compliant with HODPMTS system prescripts. We have alluded on the processes from the performance contracting, the mid-year review, the annual assessment, and the evaluation. But you still get few departments who are not submitting the performance, but there are very few on performance agreement. We seem to be doing well, but on the mid-year, then you still get some few challenges there when there is a non-compliant. It is an issue. And in terms of the intervention on the issues of AG, as DPME, we provide performance feedback to the executive authorities and the DGs after the panel evaluation. As we are supporting DG Baleni and we are secretariat, we provide that report to the EAs and to the DGs that I'll highlight to say you need to improve on this area and that area and address issues on dimension. And as DPME as well, we do analyze the APPs. I've already said it, the work that is done by the planning branch, where it's assess all the APPs in government and the strategic plans and provide feedback to the department to consider and amend before tabling in parliament. And we are in collaboration with AGS, AA, and already the work has begun. I've already alluded on that aspect. In terms of the general intervention, DPME proactively, we inform the EAs, the DGs and coordinators and capturers prior to the due days of the different HODPMTS, so that they must know, they must put the information on their diaries to say they must do this kind of work, because even if they are busy, but the issues of PMTS is regulated, they need to make sure that they take it very, very serious. So what we normally do as well, we do send the team, they send the reminders to the departments to say you must be aware that now we'll be on the performance contracting cycle. Make sure that it's happened when there must be mid-year. So we always communicate from time to time with departments. But then you still find departments that are non-compliant. I think you will get the numbers with the prescript of DPME. So we have analyzed, we've been doing that, I think now it's for the past 2 years or 3 years, to say, no, we can't just be comfortable that departments are not complying. We have conducted an analysis. Then we have summoned the chief of staff of the ministers, because they are supporting the ministers, and the DG's performance is between the minister and the DG. So obviously we call the office of the DG, the head of DGs who are not compliant, including the corporate services, because we feel that the corporate services, they lead on organization performance. And the question is, what are they doing or what they are saying when number one administrator and accounting officers performance agreement is not up to scratch? Because as a DG, you need to live by example. So we will convene those sessions where we take them through all the processes, but also we give them the slide to say we have not submitted and this is what is happening. What is an issue? How can you be supported? Obviously, you get different reasons and all that. And lastly, it's your political and administrative interface. And then any required support identified in the meetings is provided to improve the future compliance. But I know that one of the intervention as well, maybe it might not be here, we had proposed to the private office of the press, because you're also responsible supporting the private office on the performance management of ministers, to say we need to have these aspects of PMTs, of DGs in the performance management of ministers, so that when the president signed the performance agreement with the ministers assessing, they assess them even on this aspect. So we are trying different avenues to manage these issues of PMTS. Let's go to the next slide. Next slide.
I think we need to have a better presentation. That's what it like.
We are disconnected.
No, we are not concerned. I think honorable members, it seems the chair is disconnected because they were projecting the presentation. So can we proceed? We'll wait for guidance. Okay. Yeah.
It's back.
It's back.
Okay, thanks. Then on the, can I proceed? On the, I hope they can hear us. Can I proceed?
Yes,
You
we
can,
can hear you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Tia. And then in terms of the findings, and we are very, very frank on this, largely, even when we engage with departments who are not complying, we have discovered that there's poorly managed political administrative interface that leads to the late and outstanding submission and poor communication and interpersonal relations. You find that as well. And that impacts negatively on the overall of HOD PMTS. You will find that one department will say, we have sent all the information to the office of the minister. It is the minister who have not, attended to the performance management and all that, or there's lots of questions coming up from the minister's office and we are responding, but still the PMTS or the performance agreement or the mid-year is not finalized. Sometimes you find instances where the office of the minister will say, yes, minister, look at this as the performance, but the minister has made the comments, but the office of the DG, they've not incorporated the comment. So the issues of political and administrative interface, lastly, it is the main issue that we have discovered when we engage with the department. But I know that on the professionalization framework of the public sector, it's also addressing the issues of political and administrative interface so that we minimize the challenges. Then the other issue, we have discovered that you meet with chief of staff who say, I'm new, and others, there's a reshuffling and all that, much as we provide the training. But we have noticed that there are new chief of staff who always come in the system, and maybe other people who are leaving the departments and all that. So what we have said, we have taken a decision to say we need to make sure from time to time we do audit the users, including the chief of staff. If there's a new chief of staff in the system, we need to make sure that we retrain the new chief of staff, because some of them, they say, I'm just a medical doctor, Chief of Staff in the Office of Department of Health. The issues of PMDS is too technical and all that. I still need to be guided and all that. So it's one of the intervention as well. Then in terms of poor planning that results to application for condonation, you still discover that other departments, by not complying with the performance management system, they rush to DPSA to apply for condonation, but the reasons are not valid. And they'll tell that the minister was overseas or the minister was busy. We are saying, even if the minister can be busy, you know, how do you plan? Because issues of performance management is regulated. You know the dates on time. You need to make sure that you work on the diary of your principal. In their busy schedule, they need to make sure that they prioritize the PMDS. And then you still discover the inconsistency in conducting the evaluation between national and provinces. And at national, we are more stricter. We've observed that in the scoring at national, a province is a bit, flexible, but we have put some intervention so that there must be standardization. I think I've already responded on the issues of that we have said they must work closely. The offices of the DGs, Chief of Staff, they must work closely to make sure that they deal with these issues of political and administrative interface. And we say that because the DG Balen is now the head of public administration based on the professionalization framework, and the team is migrating on the other side. We feel that on proper implementation, and the issues of career incidents, including the dispute and non-compliance, will now be led at Hopper, and there'll be lots of mitigation that is happening. I think we've already said that we are training those who are, there's a transition, but from our side, we have put money aside from the branch that I lead. We are in partnership with National School of Government so that now we come up with formal training. And I know that the team have been working very hard to come up with manuals, working with National School of Government, where all EAs, including Chief of Staff and all that, they need to embark on a formal training on the PMDS, because it's a specialized area, and some people, they'll say they are not conversant on the issues of PMDS. And I have already indicated that there's a review of the PMDS, and we have proposed that the issues of condonation, there must be strict measurements in terms of the condonation. It will only be granted on exceptional value. But even now, normally they don't grant it because they could see that no, the department, they use it as an escape and all that. But we want to put even more stricter measures. But I've already indicated that one of the clauses on the PMDS directive is about the issues of consequence management, and we also said to say on the performance management of ministers, we have factored this element so that we mitigate the issues of non-compliance. So DGs must lead by example as accounting officers on PMDS, and we have already developed the evaluation pocket user guideline to standardize the DPME ratings between national provinces so that there's that standardization. Let's go to the next slide.
Sorry, honorable members, there's
Slide 10.
no, I mean, there's a problem with the laptop of Wendy. Not working. Is it pressed? Okay. Okay, slide number 10. You can proceed, Deputy Chair. Can you make it?
Okay. On slide number 10, Chair, DM, and honorable members. Now, when you look at slide number 10, we have reflected on the 2025-2026 compliance because the assignment says just give us a report on the PMDS. Okay, I think yes, the system as well. On that slide, on the performance agreement, members, we have outlined the 2025-2026, that there's a 74 compliance rate from national and provincial DGs HOD on the submission of the performance agreement. We want to say, because we normally have the session, we have noted that the quality of performance agreement has significantly improved in terms of the strategic content and alignment. Make sure that their performance agreement is aligned with the NDP, MTDP, and departmental mandate of the respective department. And these are the provinces and the national department. But in summary, the performance agreement that have been submitted on time were 85, representing 74%. The performance agreement submitted late, because you still get those submit late, but they do submit, it's about 16%. I know that the number has increased now, but we didn't want to change the presentation because others were also sending the latest information on the system. And then though the performance agreement not submitted, representing 10%, and then the overall submission on time and late, it's at 90%. If you can notice, in terms of performance agreement, we are at 90%. But you want to inform members of parliament that you still get the departments or the province that are very committed on the issues of PMDS. One of them is the Northern Cape and Western Cape, where 100% on time in terms of the performance agreement, and we need to appreciate that. Let's go to the next slide, slide 11. The slide 11, members, is more of a summary. It's just more of a summarized version on the previous slide to say, here's the pie chart on those who have submitted on time, late, and have not submitted. Let's go to slide number 12. Yeah, on slide number 12, members, who want to outline the annual performance assessment for 2024-2025 in terms of how we are faring. The 2025 annual performance assessment, obviously they need to be submitted online on or before 31st December. And I know that on the reviewer, we said this date must be changed because people are into the festive mood. By December, some of them, the switch off ends. You find that there's a lot of non-compliance. So on the PMDS, we said we need to review this day so that maybe they'll rather submit early rather than submitting in December where people are busy, some they're not even around and all that. Yeah. And then we in terms of the PMDS directive, if we are in HOD or DG, we are acting, or so we are not required to submit their PMDS documents to the OTP, but I think it's something that will say, because we are working, you still need to be assessed, but you'll be guided by DPSA, because if we are acting, there should be an accountability. And then those who are all newly appointed as well, they do not have to submit their annual assessment, because annual assessment consider the all work that have been done, and if they are still busy with their performance agreement as well. So there's that element. But I think you want to make sure that on the PMTS there are reforms that must happen. So in summary, members, out of these are the departments. I hope you went through the slides as well. So out of 157 DGs, HODs, 99 were required to submit their 2024 annual assessment based on what I have said it or above. And then in terms of the 56 annual assessment was submitted out of 99 required, which is 57 compliance rate. Look at the number. There's a bit reduction of the number there. Hence, we said we need to change even the dates, the review system and all that, so that we must get more numbers, or everyone must really comply, because PMTS is regulated. And then the compliance rate on time for national departments was 63 and 55 at the provincial level. And the overall submission rate on time and late annual assessment for national and provincial was 64. Also, there's a pocket of excellence, which we appreciate. Limpopo, Western Cape as well, even on the annual assessment, it comes on top. And obviously Limpopo, in terms of the annual assessment, we really need to appreciate that they've just achieved 100% on time submission on annual assessment. Slide number 13 is more of a summarized version. It's a pie chart of the slide number 12. And maybe let's go to slide number 14. Yes, this is just more of a 3-year performance cycle for the members to appreciate, to say how we've been faring in the 3 performance cycle. When you look at the cycle of 2023, 2024, those who have submitted on time, it's 68. Then those who have not or submitted late, this is 5%. Submitted on time, these are the figures as well. And those who have not submitted at 17%. So you can look at the other 24, 25, 26. And then in terms of the annual assessment 3-year cycle as well, these are the numbers in terms of how we are faring in terms of the annual assessment. If you could look at the performance agreement, there's a lot of high percentage comparatively to the annual assessment, and we've already alluded what are the issues and all that. Let's go to the last slide, which is okay, it's the status of the HOD evaluation. We are almost there. The status of HOD, I've already said that currently the UDG Baleni is leading on the issues of the evaluation, because everyone must be evaluated before the end of March, and the team, they're working very hard. Even yesterday, they finished late at night. Even after this session, they're gonna go back to DG's Baleni office in terms of the being a secretariat and supporting UDG Baleni. So in terms of the HOD evaluation, all HODs are evaluated subject to their compliance. Timelessly, if they submit on time, submit all the documents that are needed, whether it's agreements, mid-year reviews, and annual assessment. That's the requirement. If the DG's HOD has less than 12 months in the post, he or she will be assessed, and the evaluation panel will take into account the period of service when the person had started and all that. HOD evaluation must be finalized before 31st March. I've already said that the team is working very hard on this one, and the DPME is in the process of coordinating the 24-25, because we still have to make sure that we conduct the evaluation of the 2024-2025 HOD evaluation for national DGs and offices of the premiers for their respective provinces. I've already alluded in how it's done at the provinces. Evaluation results of 2023-2024 performance cycle: 45 DGs, HODCOs were evaluated for national departments and 5 provinces. 8, because there are scores, 8 were rated highly effective. If you are more than 3, like if you are getting 4, you become highly effective. 27 of them, they get a fully effective, which is normally it's a score of 3. And then 10 were rated partially effective. If you are not performing, we are at 2 or 1, it becomes a partially effective kind of a score. These are the departments, and these are the numbers as well, the percentages in terms of what I've explained. Let's go to the last slide. Okay, the last slide, honorable members, is just a matter of emphasis to say, as DPME, we have developed the PMDS guidelines, because you need to make sure that there are guidelines to assist the DGs, HODs with crafting of quality and strategic performance documents that are properly aligned to the NTP, MTTP strategic plans and other development instruments. We have already outlined that part. And then the other concluding remark, just to a matter of emphasis, is that the DPME, we have developed the evaluation pocket guide to support the EAs, DGs and HOD and standardize the performance scoring. We have already said that in provinces, there's a bit of flexibility, but there must be standardization in terms of that, in terms of the scoring. And then DPME, we provide feedback to the executive authority to strengthen, because at the end, executive authority must get the feedback on the DG's performance, the evaluation and all that. Yeah, we provide feedback through our EA, where the letters are signed and all that, to strengthen performance agreement for department, to strengthen the agreements on HOD, to ensure that there is an alignment. We've already alluded on that one, because I think the issues of alignment, it's still an elephant in the room. In order to strengthen the function of the hopper, we have already spoken about the professionalization framework, DG Baleni being now a head of the head of public administration, and the team is going there. So the DPSA is finalizing the baseline report on the tenure. That's part of professionalization on the tenure and contract management practices. And there are draft guidelines developed to standardize recruitment and performance renewal, in terms of if you are performing well, your contract could be renewed, issues of competence assessment. There's a lot of 10 of DGs under the professionalization framework that is happening, led by head of HOPA. The DPSA is reviewing the policy alignment between the HODP, PMDS, and the broader professionalization reform, because there are a lot of reform that's happening in government, but there's that alignment that the PMDS must be aligned to the professional reform that are happening in government. And then the last part, to improve the user experience and enhance, we have conducted a survey, and these are the dates. We took all the information as well. We improved the system, but also we send all the inputs to the DPSA so that it must be captured on the PMDS review, including the issues of consequence management. But last, we have said it that we are working on the change management processes based on the NMOC and the professionalization framework. The team, 3 members of my team are leaving very soon. They'll be joining the office of DG Baleni as a head of HOPA on PMDS. Thanks very much, Chair, DM, and honorable members, and acting teacher and colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you very much, honorable members. We'll then move to the next presentation on the progress report on the Agenda 2063, SDG and SADC initiatives. Mr. Badala will then lead us in that presentation.
Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members. I am going to sort of give an update in terms of, the implementation of, Agenda 2063 SDGs and SADC priorities by South Africa. Next slide. Okay, in terms of the 3 developmental frameworks that we're looking at, these frameworks are mostly integrated and they are more similar in terms of the objectives that they are striving towards. For example, if you look at the overall objectives or goals of SDGs, Agenda 2063, and SADC, it's more focusing around the issues of poverty, the issues of dealing with job creation, and also the issues of economic growth. So therefore, in order to be able to assess meaningfully the assessment of how South Africa is implementing, these frameworks, it is important, it was important for us to sort of like understand how our own NDP is aligned to the various development, frameworks that we are referring to. As a result of that, before we proceeded in terms of the assessment, back in 2020, DPME and the NPC conducted a mapping exercise where we tried to map, the NDP, the AU Agenda 2063, and the United Nations Sustainable Development. What that study came up with was that South Africa is aligned to the SDGs, which said 24%. And it's also aligned, with the AU Agenda 2063, which is at about 95% of the priorities. And then the question that might linger is that, what happens to the 36% difference in terms of the alignment with the SDGs? And that 36% is covered by other government programs, which the NDP, as it stands, did not cover. Hence, we found that the alignment is at 74%. Next slide. Back in 2019, when we tried to go and present the progress report to the United Nations, there was a sort of a gap that was identified that when it comes to South Africa, where does one go for information or to access knowledge with regard to the implementation of sustainable development? Then there was sort of a need that a coordination mechanism should be formed in South Africa. Hence, in 2019, a cabinet approved the national coordination mechanism for all the developmental frameworks that South Africa is committed to, the UN, the AU, and the SADC. And the main purpose of this national coordination, as the DM alluded during the opening remarks, is to serve as a multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder process in order to facilitate consultation and coordination within and outside government on South Africa's international sustainable development. So the coordination, as DM was alluding, is overseen by the IMC. It also ensures that the developmental agendas, are fully reflected in the country's national plans, and also provide the guidance on fulfilling the monitoring and the reporting requirements. Next slide. This slide is more of trying to showcase what I've just talked about in terms of the various forums that the coordination mechanism is made up of, which is the working group starts with the working group, and then it goes to the DG's National Steering Committee, and then IMC, and then a cabinet, cluster committee, and cabinet. And then also the National Sustainable Development Stakeholders Forum is mostly made up of academia, civil society, and private sector. Whatever assessment that we do with regard to these development agendas, we need to adhere according to this structure in terms of the consultation and making sure that the narrative that we undertake in order to do the assessment of the implementation of these agendas incorporates not just the government views, but also the views of other stakeholders. Next slide. Now coming to the implementation of Agenda 2063, where South Africa is at. As I indicated, the MDP, which is the Development Plan of South Africa, and the MTDP, the 5-year implementation plan, are aligned to the AU Agenda 2063's aspiration and also the 20 goals of the AU. Ever since the Agenda 2063 started, there has been some achievements that the country has achieved in terms of the processes that the AU undertakes. For example, the AU goes through a process of doing assessment of the implementation of Agenda 2063 throughout the continent, whereby member states are supposed to provide inputs toward that continental report. So far, there's been about 3 biennial reports that have been done on the implementation of Agenda 2063, and South Africa has been sort of giving inputs into the narrative that is being produced for the continental implementation of the report. And also there's been a process, whereby there was an evaluation of the first 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063, where South Africa also has given inputs in terms of how far we have sort of gone in terms of the implementation of the first year implementation plan. And also during 2022, we also looked at the formulation of the current second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063. Throughout those processes, South Africa has been sort of providing inputs, making inputs into the proposed set of indicators for the second 10-year implementation plan. And we sort of done a progress report on the second 10-year implementation plan in 2025. This report is a contribution towards the biannual report for the AU that
recording stopped. Recording in progress.
So the report that we produce in 2025 is a contribution towards the Continental Report that was supposed to be presented to the AU summit in February, but it has been sort of like postponed to the mid-year summit that is happening in July. Despite these sort of initiatives and achievements, we noticed that there are still some challenges within the AU coordination. Even though the frameworks exist, the implementation, lags the ambition. For example, the free movement of people remains uneven. And also with regard to industrialization, there's still some structural support in order to reach the anticipated targets. Next slide. Specifically for South Africa, what has been the progress as we've been asked, to present on? There are various areas where South Africa has progressed in terms of implementing Agenda 2063, and that relates first to infrastructure and economic reforms that the country has sort of like undergone, which is, for example, strengthening the economic competitiveness.
It's not organizing, then we are also. Okay, okay. But now the day is of the power. I'll be on your case.
Education and health aspects.
Sorry. Honorable Megan, can you close your mic? You can proceed.
The presentation is going, Jack. Thank you. Another area of progress that South Africa has gone through is with regard to peace, security, and governance. South Africa remains active in continental peace mediation and AU governance issues. Also, South Africa is very much involved when it comes to the continental integration, which is with regard to the progress on AfCFTA implementation, the regional trade facilitation and infrastructure development. Also, with regard to green transition and industrialization, South Africa has increased its investment in renewable energy, green industries, and climate resilience. Next slide. But at the same time, even though progress has been made, we do acknowledge that there's still some, challenges that still remain. For example, with regard to economic growth, which is uneven and slow, and also with regard to the high unemployment and youth exclusion. Also, the country is still faced with persistent inequality and also spatial exclusion. Also, with regard to infrastructure deficit and delivery constraints. And also the institutional capacity and the coordination challenges whereby execution gaps with state institutions hinder progress, requiring strengthened monitoring, oversight, and also intergovernmental collaboration. Next slide. Overall, the emphasis that South Africa has sort of like put forward in terms of the implementation of Agenda 2063 is on economic growth, job creation, infrastructure development, and regional cooperation. So there was South Africa supports Agenda 2063 goals and also contributes through the national strategies and regional roles, but progress depends on deeper implementation across the sectors. In terms of the way forward and status with regard to Agenda 2063, South Africa is up to date in terms of providing inputs into the dashboards that exist within the AU and NEPAD side, and also monitoring through NPC and DPME, and also through the continental biennial reports. And also South Africa continues to participate actively in AFTA and other flagship projects. Next slide. As honorable members would know, South Africa is chairing the Presidential Infrastructure Champion Initiative, which the president, chairs. This is a flagship project that is within the continent, where various projects were put together that, the heads of states, of the various regions must lead on. There has been, some progress that has been achieved with regard to PC, but the progress is at different stages in terms of the implementation. As you can see on the slides, for example, the project on Trans-Sahara Highway, that project is currently about 90% of the corridor has been paid and it's functional. But when it comes to the Trans-Saharan optical fiber, also it continues to progress well. And this project is sort of like connecting Algeria, Nigeria, with the extensions to Mali, Chad, and Mauritania. And that project is sort of like, linking all those countries, and is projected for completion. It should have been completed by June 2025. With the data, from Nigeria, which was not presented during December. Hence, we still have, June 2025 in order to see whether the project has been completed fully. Next slide. These are the other projects that are within the PC that are also progressing at various stages. For example, if you look at the Lamu Port South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor, that project is also progressing well, with some areas of that project having fully been completed, like the Lamu Moyal Addis Highway, which is completed, and only about 60% completion of the Lamu South Sudan Road. And also there's been some progress on the rail, fiber, and the pipeline feasibility studies. Next slide. The same with these projects. They are also sort of progressing at various stages. With the Namibia International Logistics, which is by mid-2025, 80% of the plots were targeted for leasing and tendering for the new rail segments. And the Kinshasa-Brazzaville Road also is progressing well, with some bilateral implementation that committees that were established in August 2022. And by the end of 2024, PPP procurement processes were underway. Next slide. The last project within the piece is the North-South Corridor, which President Cyril Ramaphosa is the one that is leading on it. And also that project is sort of like, progressing with the 42 gigawatts projects held. It's 12th bi-national session in July 2025, therefore renewing the commitment and advancing the groundwork through the AIF 2023. Also within that corridor is the Bay Bridge one-stop border post, which also is sort of like, being upgraded, which will cut the clearance times by half in terms of passing through the Bay Bridge border post, and South Africa's Border Authority, Management Authority, which was launched in 2023. The construction side on South Africa's side is expected to handle about 1,000 trucks per day. And also in terms of the South Africa Rail Manufacturing Hub, that project is also producing with some investments that are coming through in order to support that project. Next slide. But despite the progress that has been achieved within PC, there are some challenges, that are being experienced. The first of those challenges relates to the financial constraints constraints, which limits the capital and inadequate funding for feasibility and project preparation, which impedes the availability of the PC projects. Also, another challenge that is within PC relates to the weak coordination, which is the absence of a regional governance framework. This has stalled the intergovernmental agreements and joint implementation between the different countries that are involved in that project. Also, there is secretariat capacity challenges within PC, where PC lacks a dedicated budget and also a staff which constrains the ability to support coordination, feasibility studies, and project monitoring. Also, there are issues of political and institutional bottlenecks, where unresolved governance issues, national level capacity gaps, and shifting political priorities hinder the sustained progress. And also there are some security and stability risks within the implementation of PC projects, where in relation to conflict zones such as the Mali and the South Sudan pose direct threats to project execution. And the last challenge that is within PC relates to policy and enabling environment, where strong alignment with regional economic communities is very important in order to improve the financial predictability, policy coherence, and sustainable business models. Next slide. Next slide. Let's go to the next one. 14.
Check your connectivity, please. We kept on missing you.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the implementation of UN sustainable goals, the framework also is aligned closely. NDP is aligned with the SDGs that are both focusing on reducing poverty, inequality, and unemployment, while at the same time promoting growth and sustainable development. There's been a key achievement with regard to the implementation of SDGs in South Africa. One of those areas is with regard to producing voluntary national reviews for presentation to the high-level political forum. As I indicated, the first VNR was produced in 2019, with the second VNR on assessment of implementation of SDGs produced in 2025. And also another key achievement is with regard to the initiative in terms of involving the local sphere of government, where we have a pilot with 11 municipalities in order to start producing their own voluntary local reviews. Those 11 municipalities have produced their reports, and those reports are available to, for assessment in order to see where the local sphere of government is at with regard to implementation of SDGs. Also, there's Statistics South Africa Data Country Report. This report details per goal analysis in terms of the implementation of Agenda 2063, and also it is an evidence, that is being used in order to produce the voluntary national reviews. And also at the same time, the annual performance plans of DPME also embed the SDGs into the MTDP monitoring. Also in 2021, South Africa signed the United Nations Strategic Development Cooperation Framework. And now there's a new framework that is in process that is en route to cabinet for 2026 to 2030. Even though we have done, these sort of initiatives or achievements, there's also some sort of challenges that we experience in terms of the second VNR, even though it was done and approved by cabinet, but it was not presented to the United Nations due to some administration challenges. One of them is in terms of the data collection for the country report, which was delayed, which is the poverty data information. So therefore, the report that we had had data information that was sort of old, so hence it was not presented to the United Nations. Next slide. So South Africa continues, in terms of progressing in order to implement, the United Nations SDGs. For example, you will see that South Africa has a comprehensive social protection coverage, including public employment, then in high poverty rate. And also in terms of the access to health coverage, South Africa, is aimed to guarantee quality health care regardless of economic status. And also South Africa has experienced a decline in terms of the maternal mortality, child mortality, and new HIV infections and other communicable diseases. And also there's been some notable increases in terms of the quality of the early childhood development and in schools completion. And South Africa has a strong legislative frameworks that promotes gender equality, social inclusion, and equity. And South Africa has a large majority of South Africans that has access to water and sanitation. And also it has institutions aimed at identifying and prosecuting corruptions that have been strengthened significantly. So that's a progress that South Africa has made with regard to the SDGs implementation. Next slide. But at the same time, there are some areas, of challenges that remains, as I indicated also under, the implementation of Agenda 2063. Those challenges are sort of like consistent with what, I indicated earlier with regard to the high unemployment rates and high inequality that still persist. And also in terms of the skills mismatch between the education and the industry, also needs required focus attention from stakeholders. And also in terms of the infrastructure inefficiencies, including at local government level, that hinder production and export of goods and services. And South Africa's material footprint remains high, and there's a slow uptake of sustainable practices. And also there's been a parallel public and private health systems that exist, but the allocation of resources is skewed in favor of the private sector. And also there's a need to improve on the use of evidence in order to inform policy development and implementation in all spheres of government. So those are some of the challenges that have been identified, on the implementation of SDGs. Next slide. So the overall assessment in terms of, the implementation of SDGs is that, SDGs addresses poverty, unemployment, inequality, and sustainable economic growth. There is high unemployment, inequality, and slow economic growth that limits the pace of SDG attainment. And South Africa remains in mitigation mode when it comes to climate impact. And reducing poverty and inequality remains slow due to structural economic constraints, although there are ongoing social protection and inclusion efforts. And South Africa has systems for tracking SDG progress and aligning national policies with the global goals, but yet the outcomes vary widely across the targets. Way forward when it comes to the implementation of the SDGs, the next VNR will be presented by the country in 2027. Next slide. Coming to the SADC priorities and regional initiatives, in 2026, South Africa is the interim chair, where it advances the RISDP 2020 to 2030 priorities that focuses on peace, security, good governance, industrial development, and market integration, and also focuses on issues of agriculture, energy transition, infrastructure, social and human development issues. Some of the achievement within the regional priorities is that South Africa actively supports intra-regional trade and also the infrastructure corridors and also the energy cooperation and tourism integration within the region. And DECO led a strategic reflection workshop in February 2026, where it developed a renewed South African engagement strategy for SADC, aligning with NDP and also the national interest. And also South Africa drives deeper market integration and support the regional development fund. And lastly, South Africa through the NPC Secretariat, DPME, and therefore also participate within the region on the Community of Practice platform for the SADC national planning entities. This national planning entities was formed in order to sort of like have a conversation among the planning entities within SADC in order to understand how do the member states domesticate their development, domesticate the regional plan into the national development plan. Next slide. In terms of challenges that are within the SADC priorities, is that challenges persist in terms of the coordination and the resource constraints, as challenges affect the participating in SADC initiatives, and also the development of the COP NPEs portal, which commenced in 2023, but progress has been slow due to several challenges, that is including the responsiveness, by other NPEs within SADC in terms of providing the content that is needed to be uploaded into the network. The overall assessment is that, South Africa is one of the largest economies within SADC, and it plays a leading role, in the priorities, in the priority areas, but also faces challenges such as infrastructure bottlenecks, regional disparities, and also the implementation gaps. There's a good understanding of the function and importance of the SADC NPEs Community of Practice in achieving SADC strategic plan vision 2050, and also in terms of sharing knowledge on the operationalization and transfer of ownership. The way forward in terms of SADC, there's a need to have a better coordination or a reporting system with regard to the SADC priority and regional integration initiatives. Next slide. Therefore, Chair and honorable members, in terms of conclusion, South Africa is committed to realizing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development agendas, which is the AU Agenda 2063 and also the SADC RISDP. The approach in terms of implementing these agendas, it starts with the National Development Plan and the Medium-Term Development Plan. But for us as a country to be able to realize the goals of these agendas, there are some key principles that we need to adhere to in order to be able to achieve them. One of those principles relates to collaboration. There's a need for strong partnerships between government, civil society, Chapter 9 institutions, trade unions, and the private sector and academia. And also when it comes to the policy coherence aspect, we need to make sure that there's coherence, emphasizing the integrated nature of the development agendas. As I indicated right up front, all these agendas focus on issues of poverty, job creation, and economic growth. But most importantly, with regard to the implementation of the sustainable development agendas, the sustainable development agendas should be approached with a sense of agency, where there is an improvement in the people's lives, especially the vulnerable groups and individuals. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the members of the committee.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. That's it from our side.
Thank you very much, DG, with your team, and thank you very much with that detailed two presentations. Honorable members, the presentations have been presented before this portfolio committee, and the first one, of course, is the one that has been presented by DDG Timane and also Patala. I will now, honorable members, take hands. I see there's a hand of Honorable Bergman.
Chair, thanks very
Honorable
much.
Zuma.
Ah.
Sorry, Honorable Bergman, can you, okay? I see Mr. Honorable Mani. I will take Honorable Bergman. Those are the three hands, honorable members. As you then ask questions, honorable members, you must do that on both presentations. And Honorable Appear.
Chair, thank you very much. With regards to the first presentation, I think it's important that we get a standard understanding of the standards used in terms of marking or assessing both the Director Generals and the probably the Deputy Directors, etc. And then, of course, the department, if there's any correlation in terms of, you know, how the DGs are operating and how those departments are operating as well. Whether there's any weight that's assigned to that DG based on how the actual department functions or is performing. In terms of the agreements, I just want to speak in broad terms because I've just come back from India, and I think it's important that I mention that, you know, I think there was consensus in terms of the AU and BRICS that BRICS has just become too wide in terms of its membership, and it's almost anyone can become a member, and it's no longer what it was its original intention of just the 5 member states working together in a cooperative. Now, the AU itself tends to, you know, dare I say, be as effective as the UN, which is effective at all. And something like BRICS, which is a development bank in its power, which the power of the BRICS is the development bank, is probably the most productive part of BRICS and probably the most productive part of what is required from any treaty. I think when you're talking to a person that is hungry or doesn't have shelter, they're more interested in the likes of where their next meal is coming from or where their next job is coming from, more than their air quality or where their, you know, how many CO2 carbon emissions they're emitting every day. And all, you know, although all is important, I can assure you that the biggest contributors to the pollution could be the likes of China and India. But I can assure you as well that they're not interested in finding any solution to the problem at this stage, nor would we have been when it came to load shedding. I don't think we would want to have seen us closing coal power stations and letting load shedding persist when we had the coal and we had the opportunity to keep the power on. So when we talk about all these regional, international treaties, and we look at where we place ourselves, the number one rule is consistency. And South Africa doesn't have consistency. I think the only consistency we have is that we're consistently on the wrong side of right. We're not consistent. We don't show the foreign, and I'm not, you know, it's not about West or East. It's not about the free countries or it's about being consistent. That the person who wants to invest in this country is going to say that they understand what the national interests of this country is. So we have to be aligned in our foreign affairs with consistency, and we have to be aligned in our treaties in something that is consistent in what we're trying to achieve. And as I say, I think most importantly for now, before we go into quality of air and quality of carbon footprints in it, we have to ensure that trade is our number one priority. That if it's trade and technology, that it brings, that's the one we seek first. And I'm not sharing that. I'm not sharing that from any of the three. The three areas that we spoke of. It's all shrouded in bland terms and workshop convention terms. I just believe that we should be pushing an agenda of trade, technology, and inclusivity, but we should be very, very clear on what our mandates must be on all these forums, who should be included in these forums, and what we wish to achieve on these forums. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bachman. Honorable Zuma.
Good morning, Slalo. Good morning to everyone present at the meeting. First of all, I'd like to take a moment to appreciate the presentations that were presented to us today. I think I just have about 4 or 5 questions, starting with the presentation, the first presentation. Given that only 57% of the required HOD annual assessments were submitted, does the ministry accept that this represents a systematic collapse of accountability at senior management level? And what specific disciplinary actions have been taken against the non-compliant DGs? The second question is, there is a poor alignment between HOD performance agreements and national priorities. How does the ministry justify continuing with the system where senior officials are not contractually bound to deliver on national priorities, and when will alignment become enforceable? Then on the second presentation, the department is responsible for oversight. So which departments have failed to meet SDG targets, and what enforcement action has the department taken against them? If none, why not? Then the second question for that presentation is how much has been spent on monitoring, evaluation, consultants, and reporting systems, and what measurable improvements in service delivery can be directly attributed to this expenditure? Then my last question is, given that most SDG delivery happens at local government level, how does the reports account for collapsing municipalities, and what proportion of targets are already unattainable due to this failure? I submit slide.
Thank you very much, Honorable Zuma. Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, firstly, let me first of all also just greet the DM and his entourage, DGs, everybody there. I welcome both presentations. They are very neatly done and all. And the chair, I must say for once that today I got the impression that the PME is now doing what it was set up to do in terms of looking out and checking performance across government. This is all we've been asking for all this time, as opposed to internal focus. Internal focus is okay, but keep it at 20%. 80% must be what we've just heard today. So I just want to give them a thumbs up on this. I think this is I think the department is finally on the right track. This is what we've been asking for. So I'm very happy with this approach of looking at the department, looking at government as a whole. We've looked at provinces and all of that. The only issue, though, having said this, is that the tonality is somewhat political, and I'll explain what I mean here. It's somewhat political in this way, that after all is said and done here, I don't know, as a member of parliament, where do I go from here to go and deal with the non-performance that you talk about? Because you've masked things. You talk about percentage in this province, percentage in that province, the DGs at the national level, this percentage is performing, that percentage. Who are we talking about here? So it's just smokes and mirrors. This is my problem, is that I wanted out of this report to get my bag and then arrange to do an oversight. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to go because you've hidden these people. So my direct questions influenced by that approach. Oh, by the way, also even on the second presentation, I mean, if you listen to the second presentation, you get the impression that all is well, we're on track, everything is honky-dory, and everything and all of that. And yet we're sitting with an NDP that is on catastrophic levels in terms of failure of implementation. But if you listen to the presentation here today, it's all smooth, it's going okay. We are aligning to the SDGs, we are a developed country, and all of this thing. But I'll get to it now. But that overall impression that I have on both presentations. But on actual questions, firstly, on issues of consequence management failure. The presentation repeatedly cites non-compliance, late submissions, poor performance, yet no clear sanctions are outlined. I mean, this is like tolerating incompetence. Why are we doing this? Why do we not have how many DGs, or rather, who are these DGs and HODs that are not performing? Why don't we just name them so that at least we know where to go? Why are you hiding the non-performers? Why are you making the job of Parliament difficult? Because we don't know who to chase now out of this report, because you've masked them. You've got some graph there that talks about partial effectiveness and all of that. And those people that are partially performing, partially effective, are fully paid. There's no partial performance or ineffective. They are fully paid, everything. But they are partially performing. Who are these people? We don't know, but you know them. But we're not told who these people are. So how is it helping? Just tell me, how is it helping? So the other question is on the issue of the irregular and wasteful expenditure. Second question. The report admits that most departments perform poorly on irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. But you don't say exactly which department is doing this. Which are the affected departments so we know where to go? Who is busy not following prescripts? You just say departments. Who are these people? Can we have a quantified breakdown per department and explanation on why officials implicated in repeat findings remain in office? Can we have that? Third question, the issues of 30-day payment. I mean, this is a story of our lives in this country. Despite being a basic compliance requirement, the state continues to fail on paying suppliers within 30 days. And here, by the way, I'm not talking a blind payment of 30 days, which is wrong. We're talking about people that have met all the compliance standards and everything, quality, all. Those are the people we're talking about here. Not talking about people that just come in and then do a shabby job and expect to be paid. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the right people. Then when the official must pay, then the official is on a workshop for 3 days. There's nobody to sign the whatever needs to be signed for people to get paid. Why do we have this? Why do we tolerate things like that? Where people have done, entrepreneurs have busted their back to do the job properly. And now they must chase you for payment. And then there are no consequences for you. How is that fair? Tell me, how is that fair? So I have a problem with this. And I have a problem with the fact that I do not see any ministerial intervention on DGs. So question is, why is the minister, DM, why are you, DM, and the minister, why are you not dealing with the DGs that are not meeting this basic compliance requirement? Because this is where corruption comes in. You have to pay somebody for them to be able to pay you in 30 days. You must incentivize them to do what they must do. And this is allowed by ministers because ministers do nothing about the cries of the SMEs when they're not getting paid. Ministers are not doing what they should do. They let DGs run amok with the invoices because someone must be incentivized to do their work. So ministers are responsible for this thing. So I'm looking for a clear answer here, DM. What are you doing to those DGs that are failing to comply with a simple thing of 30 days of work that has met quality standards, as it were? And we also want to know, acting DG, who are the worst offenders? Which are these departments? Why are you guys hiding information? Who are these people that continue to fail to pay in 30 days? Who are these people? This department has been set up to ensure that this government performs. And I'm happy that you are looking at them. But you are hiding the non-performers. Why are you hiding them? Fourth question, weak and manipulated performance targets. The report confirms that departments deliberately set weak targets to overperform. This is like fraud, actually. Huh? Now, does the minister concede that this amounts to institutionalized manipulation of performance data? And what mechanisms exist to invalidate or penalize such dishonest reporting? I mean, you see, for instance, through you, Chair, we sit here with, maybe I'll make that example on the next slide. Let me just proceed here so we can finish on time. Tiani was very frustrated in her face when she was talking about poorly managed political administrative interface. You could see that she could see these people that are doing this, but she's not telling us who these people are. Now the question is, Diane, few, which executive authorities, ministers, MECs have been flagged as contributing to this dysfunction? Who are these people? Have you reported them to the minister? Yes or no? What has the minister done about this? Minister, can you just tell us, DM? Diana would have reported that your colleagues, your political peers are underperforming. It's in the presentation. What have you done about this? Assuming Diana has told you, unless you're saying Diana has not told you. Diana, have you told the minister? Have you told the DM that I have a problem here, I have a problem here, I have a problem there, I have a problem there? I'm sure you would have. Officials are always very respectful people. They would say this, but then the problem are comrades. Comrades hide other comrades. This is the problem. And now we're sitting with a problem that we can't solve because comrades are looking after each other. DM, I need you to comment on this thing specifically. And then on acting appointments, with 36 out of 158 HOD positions filled on an acting capacity. DM, do you accept then that this creates a culture of instability? People that are in acting positions are given not 100% respect. They are, because you never know whether this Hollywood, when is it going to end? You invest everything and then next thing, or you invest everything to this boss, you think it's going to be a boss, and before you know, he gets moved. So people don't invest in acting people. They just tolerate them. They do the bare minimum. So executive authority is aware of these acting arrangements, you know? So why is that allowed to continue? Why are we creating instability? So those are the questions on the first presentation. On the next presentation, on the SDGs, I just found first issue, I'll characterize it as a false progress narrative. The report paints a picture of progress. I mean, the guy that was making this presentation here was just happy that we're making progress and so on. The NDP is aligned to the SDG, everything, hunky-dory. Yet poverty is actually at a highest level than when in apartheid days. Unemployment is a young person that was making this presentation. He knows that 60% of the youth of this country are unemployed. You know, inequality at 0.67, we're almost getting to absolute inequality. All of these things are worse, but they're not shown on the data. They are not shown on the data that here are the challenges that we're facing as a country. And we're struggling to meet the SDG goals, which we're not going to meet if at this rate that we're going. But here, this presentation is all glossed over, that we're making progress, things are moving, but we've got a mess on the ground. Why are we giving false progress narrative? Why are we being lied to, basically? Or why is that the case? Why are we told, put your guards down, we've got this, when we've got nothing? When the country is in tentacles, but here we're getting a picture that everything is moving, we are fine, and all of that. It's a problem. Second, we've got what I would characterize as cosmetic reporting versus reality. I mean, how much of the reported progress is based on policy adoption and frameworks rather than actual service delivery outcomes? You know, can we quantify the difference? I mean, let me give an example, Chairperson. You know, the Statistician General, when we were querying the issue of water, access to water, he says they are using the UN definition. Now, the UN definition in terms of access to water, he explained this very nicely, the SG, Manolek. He explained it very nicely to say access to water means, in terms of the UN definition, taps in the yard. Now, that definition would assume that that tap in a yard is probably blue drop quality water. That's access to water. But in our case, we've got the tap in the yard, but the tap is dry. We've got the tap in the yard, but the water is dirty. But we've got here a report that says access to water, we're doing well. What access is that? When we've got dirty water on our taps, when we've got dry taps. So what progress is this? You know, so we're busy with the cosmetic reporting, and we're looking at presentations, the frameworks, and all of this. We tick boxes. Nice PowerPoint presentation. The ground is telling a different story. And here we get a presentation that is busy glossing over issues. Thirdly, I would argue that we also have manipulated indicators, with which SDG indicators have been revised, redefined, or substituted due to lack of data. And how does this not amount to lowering the bar to create an illusion of progress? Because really, this is my view, that we've got an illusion of progress. Last two questions. The missed deadlines. Which 2024, 2025 milestones have already been missed? And what consequences have followed for those responsible? Name the officials and actions taken. This is my problem here. We're sitting here with a lot of things that are happening, but the officials are not saying who's not doing what they should be doing. And I don't know where to go. As I said, I don't know where to go from here. Lastly,
Last question.
in terms of executive accountability, last point, Chair, executive accountability. Minister, Deputy Minister, are you willing to commit to resigning or facing performance sanctions if South Africa continues to miss its SDG targets? And if not, what does accountability actually mean in your department? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Manje. Honorable Apshir.
Thanks very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, just a few questions. I will start with the second presentation. Chair, Related to the sub-Saharan countries, our domestic economic growth has been stagnant for over a decade, while other African countries have experienced higher economic growth rates. My question on that statement is, what are the observed lessons in countries with higher economic growth rates such as Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, and Morocco, amongst others? Our country chair, as the second statement to the question that will follow, has a role in supporting the strengthening of governance and building capacity in terms of skill transfer and the support of programs. And those African countries, some of them have governance challenges and a lack of systems. What role is our country playing in supporting those state building African countries? With the DBSA, Honorable Chair, has a substantive allocation for Africa, while the PIC does not allocate adequate resources for asset allocation on the continent. Is the department focusing on monitoring financial sector asset allocation as a key determiner of our national development trajectory and to support development on the continent? On the second presentation, Chair, I just have one question that deals with the consequence management. My colleagues have touched on that, and I have also a question around that. My question is will follow the statement that the lack of consequence management on compliance with the PMDs is a grave weakness, Comrade Chair, exposing inadequate accountability and exposing also a weak political administrative interface. The question is, do we need further measures to define the relationship of the political administrative interface? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Apiri, Honorable Compagno.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to yourself and our DM present in the meeting and fellow honorable members and the team from DPME. Chair, I just have 3 questions. Let me start with the presentation on the AU agenda and the SDGs. Firstly, in the face of slow domestic growth and, the unemployment crisis that we have, expanding into African markets has been very critical for South Africa's economic recovery. So I wanted to check, how is South Africa coordinating trade and investment on the continent as a key market to fuel our domestic industrial base? And also in that presentation too, I just wanted to check which indicators are not in track in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063, and what focused approach is being implemented to ensure that South Africa improves in terms of these SDGs. And then in terms of the performance management and development systems presentation, I just want to check just one thing. Concerns have been raised about uneven performance across departments, particularly at senior management level, where partially effective leadership can undermine service delivery and institutional stability. So I wanted to check what measures are being implemented to support HODs who are partially effective in their responsibilities. I just want to check what the department is doing in terms of that. And then lastly, the effectiveness of performance of the PMDs remains critical to ensuring accountability in the public service. Yet we see more reports of non-compliance. So I wanted to check, what is the level of assessment of PMTs being undertaken for public servants relative to HOTs and TTs with a non-compliance, high non-compliance rate. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you very much, honorable members, with your questions. And I will then also give the department to respond on the many questions that have been raised by honorable members, both presentations, and I know that there are issues that will need the Deputy Minister to respond. I think there were two issues that have been raised, and I wish that the Deputy Minister in his closing remarks will also touch on those issues, especially that have been asked by Honorable Mani in terms of the executive accountability and, of course, the ministerial intervention. I will then hand over to the acting DG and the team, and then the Deputy Minister will close the responses.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and also thank you to the honorable members for the question that they've asked. But importantly, in terms of the comments that they've made, in terms of improving our reporting, but most importantly on the issues, for example, of consequences management, and the other issues that were raised. And I must indicate, as some of the honorable members have been saying, we have been very factual in our reporting. We have not been hiding any information. Where there has not been any progress, we were very honest and say there is no progress in these areas. Where we have challenges, we have indicated where challenges are. Starting with Honorable Bergsman's question in terms of the standard used to assess the DGs and the HODs. Of course, as a base, we have a directive on the implementation of the heads of departments, performance management and development system. So that directive then guides us. But there are also standards in terms of the institutional performance in assessing DGs, DDGs and departments. So that includes institutional performance through the APP and the AG findings. And as we are saying, we need to improve the alignment with the MTDP, because we've got to make sure that the performance agreements are aligned with the priorities of government. On Honorable Zuma's question, is the system collapsing? No, it's not collapsing. We've actually seen an improvement in terms of the compliance with regard to the performance agreement. It is not where it's supposed to be because it has to be at 100%. There are challenges which we have indicated in the presentation, but definitely the system is not collapsing. And we are going to strengthen the alignment of the APP to the performance agreement, because importantly, that's where it starts, with the APP to say these are the priorities of this particular department, and we've got to make sure that translates into the performance agreement in that regard. So the system is definitely not failing in that regard. Honorable Mani is asking, where do I go from here in terms of the non-performance? And as we present this picture, in actual fact, the portfolio committee can call those particular departments where there has been non-compliance, together with the portfolio committees, of course, where they report to, and make an intervention in that regard in terms of where there has been non-compliance. Of course, these issues, as we're going forward, we're going to put them as part of the performance agreements of ministers, which the president does, especially on the issues of no performance agreement, so that then there's an accountability at that particular level to say, why is this not done and why is there no compliance in that regard? On the issues of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, we can give you that in terms of which departments, because the AG publishes that as part of the work they do. But the one that I'm a bit reluctant on is on the non-performing DGs, because that's then getting into the labor law terrain in terms of the employer-employee, confidentiality. So we might be constrained in that regard. But there are interventions. I mean, if there's partial performance in terms of the labor laws, because it's quite a regulated environment in terms of the legal architecture, in terms of a labor law, you've got to take that person through a personal development plan. And of course, if there is no improvement, then there has to be dismissal. So it's something that you've got to follow the laws of the country in terms of that. You have asked on the issues of the 30 days payment to the suppliers. Of course, it's an issue of concern to us. We have highlighted it in the presentation because we've got to assist these companies in terms of paying them on time. And Treasury actually looks at that, it monitors that. So information is available in terms of which departments have not complied and which departments have complied. And we have always, as DPME, and I have to take pride in that, complied and paid within the 30 days. Because we realize that we've got to lead by example as the department that is responsible for ensuring that the machinery of government works. So that information is available and we can do that. I think the other one they've asked DM to look at. The issue of the active appointments is an area of concern. We share that, Honorable Mani, because the stability at the DG, head of department level, is important to the optimal running of any organization or any department. So that is why we are raising it as an issue here. And we do raise it with both with the executive authorities of those particular departments to say, there must be a filling of those posts. And it takes long and it shouldn't. So it's an issue of concern that we actually share with you. On the issue of the SDGs, we have been very honest in terms of the challenges that we have in the country, the issue of high unemployment, the issue of poverty, the issue of inequality. So our presentation was quite clear in terms of the progress and the challenges. So we are not trying to put on a rosy, picture to say everything is well. Where we have challenges, for example, on the PICI, the challenges are there: financial constraint, weak coordination, political institutional bottlenecks, security and stability risks. So we have been honest where there are challenges, and as I said, high unemployment, poverty, and inequalities. Those are the challenges we have, and we accept that there are challenges. And we cannot change the SDGs indicators. So there's no manipulation of the targets. We don't have the local standard to change those. So we have not changed anything. We've been honest in terms of how we report in that regard. Honorable Piri, I agree. The DPSA has actually done a lot of work, especially in terms of funding the infrastructure development across Africa. And that must be commended. And I know there is some work that IDC is doing in that regard. We have actually have a new unit that we have established to look at this, but also look at the innovative funding mechanisms that we can have there. I know some of them are PPP, the BOT, build, operate, and transfer. So there are innovative ways in terms of how we can fund in infrastructure, and we are exploring, and we have brought capacity within the department to look at those particular issues. So in the terms of consequences management, as I indicated, maybe let me restate that we are going to make sure that those are then highlighted first going forward when the president then have those performance agreement and assessment meetings to make sure that there is compliance on those particular areas. But also, I think the portfolio committee can also intervene in that regard by calling those particular departments together with their portfolio committees. But also from a DG's perspective, in terms of we are raising these issues with the DGs themselves to say you've got to lead by example and ensure that there is compliance in that regard. I think, Honorable Kumbantla, in terms of the SDGs, I have indicated where we have challenges, but also in terms of the supporting the HODs. I mean, we have said it in our presentation. We do have workshops where we take them through the process and we intervene and making sure that they are supported in terms of doing this. But of course, there are challenges. There's still non-compliance to a particular extent. But we continue to say National School of Government maybe come and also assist us in terms of training, because others also have indicated that they need training in that regard. Let me just see if the colleagues wants to come in. Okay. I think maybe DM, I think from our side, that is where we are.
Thank you, Chairperson. I take it that I can proceed from here after the acting DG and the team responded to some of the issues. I will say that we, first of all, welcome the portfolio committee's input on the overall performance evaluation, monitoring and evaluation of all spheres, which is a transversal mechanism. We appreciate that the systems are maturing. I think the first point that Honorable Manye made, that this report is one of the good attempts to reflect, although, of course, various areas criticized as to whether the report is entirely helpful. But I think members of the portfolio committee do agree that the report is a helpful tool to give a reflection of the overall performance in the areas that we are reporting under today. So we do agree with the key points that the committee members have highlighted, that issues of consequence management is crucial. The identifying name and address non-performance is key. That we do agree. It's an point that the acting DG says that even at the FOSAT level, in the forum of DGs, this matter must be addressed in an unapologetic manner. And I'll add that you Honorable Manye, asked at the political level, we also need to use intergovernmental forum like the Presidential Coordinating Council, where Premier sits, flag in the issues of performance of the provinces, non-compliance, and we'll make it a regular feature that we deal with these issues, and also name and shame also in these platforms. So the over 30 vacancies of heads of department, we agree it's a matter that we must address. And maybe you'll also say that our own department should not live longer with the issue of the acting capacity. We should also be amongst the first to bring good practice and standards in this area. So I agree, rectification needed, and as I said, possibly also involving President's Coordinating Council. We have to deal with these issues across government level. I'm sure members agree that we should not have acting capacities existing across government level. We should build a very stable organization where there's certainty is the order of the day. Integrative approach, alignment of NDP 2026, and those issues of alignment and ensure that coordination is stronger. We agree we continue to deal with those issues. Lift South African people and African masses out of poverty. I think that's an agenda. And to this extent, we as DPME, together with the School of Government, we have also been participating in initiatives that looks into various African countries, for instance, Ghana, Nairobi, and we'll continue to look into other African countries in terms of the collaboration. How do we systematically promote free Africa continental trade? Because trade among African countries, our trade with African countries is at its lowest. So these are the issues that we are going to be dealing with systematically based on these projects that have been highlighted, and others, of course, that we have to deal with. So we really will use various forums, IGR forums such as FOSAT, PCC, even to ensure that our reports get entertained at MINMAX level, where we deal specifically with issues that the provinces are not responding on. So I will say the march is on, and we'll always keep our eyes focused on progress. So I don't want to go to issues of figures. South Africa's unemployment rate, obviously figures don't lie. All of us must just refer to the right sources. What it says around our unemployment rate, our quarterly performance, poverty rate. So we insisting on the DPME officials to that we will have to have a greater operation of ensuring that we succeed in our work. So I think we are going to be dealing with this issue. We're going to be dealing with these issues constructively as raised by the portfolio committee, but also as we reporting our reporting mechanisms, because we do report into various platforms where these issues will be highlighted. So continuously, we'll always come back to the committee to flag areas of progress. I think that the situation will not be the same as it is now at the time when our cycle of reporting comes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DM. I see there's a hand of Honorable Mani. Thank you, Honorable Apir. I'm back.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, firstly, let me welcome the responses from all around. The responses. Maybe let me just clarify something with the acting DG. By way of example, acting DG, I mean, if you go to either slide 10 or slide 15. Now, let me just pick up on slide 10. I just want to illustrate the point. If you say, for instance, on slide 10, you've listed all the provinces on your left, and you've got this table here, and you've got a table that says percentage not submitted. And let's say in Eastern Cape, you say 11% as an example, 11%. Now, if I go to the Eastern Cape, this is one HOD that is not submitted. That is the responsibility for this 11%. The question is, when I get to the Eastern Cape, where do I go? Who is this one person that has not submitted here? I just know it's one person in the Eastern Cape. Are you saying I must run around the whole province looking for this one HOD? Similarly, if you go to slide 15, was slide 15? Yeah, if you go to slide 15, for instance, and you've got a column there of 22% of partially effective, and then you say partially effective, then you've got provinces again there, 43%, 20%, and all of this 38%, and all of that. So who is this 43%? You see, if you are going to argue and say, but you are being honest, you've said everything, you've given information, the question is, if I go to KZN right now and look for that partially effective, where do I go? Because you just have 43% there. I mean, there in this same slide, for instance, you've got 10 were partially effective. Now, who are those 10 people? This is the question I'm asking. You can't say to me that you are being 100% transparent when you've got a 10 which hasn't got a name and number. This is my problem. So even if you have to submit it to the committee, just so we have a place to go, if you can't do it publicly, I can, to an extent, understand that. But I'm at sea right now as to who are these 10 people that we need to talk to their political principal and say, this one is not pulling his or her socks. What are you doing about it? How do we hold the executive authority accountable to performance manage their staff if you don't tell us as to which one? You just say somewhere in that corner, which corner, you know, this is the problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mani. DG, I know that Honorable Mani is looking for the details in terms of the HODs or the relevant departments, especially those that have not submitted. I'm not sure if you've got a response to the question, or you will then submit the report, a detailed report in terms of all these HODs and, of course, DGs that have not submitted province by province, because you have said the only two provinces that have submitted 100% is Limpopo and the Western Cape. And of course, it means all other provinces that have not been mentioned are the ones that the report must be submitted before the portfolio committee. In terms of, if you are saying in the Eastern Cape, in the Northern Cape, in Gauteng, in the Northwest, Free State, these are the departments that have not submitted, and these are the HODs or the DGs that have not submitted. I think the honorable members, they want the detailed report, and if that report is not available today, you can present submit the report in writing to the before, or we'll also invite you, and so that you only come and present the detailed report, because there's a table before us that says in some provinces it's 5%, in some provinces there's 6%, 10%. So we'll request that the report, and of course, not only provinces, the national departments as well, because seemingly there are challenges, there are gaps, and we'll request that honorable members, that report, if it's not available today, that the department submit before the portfolio committee. Are you happy, honorable members?
Yes,
Or
Chair.
do you have a report before you, acting DG, and your team?
We can provide that report. We'll do the breakdown in terms of the questions that the members have asked. We just need a bit of time then to collate it and give it in the format that you have asked. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Honorable members, that breakdown will be then submitted before the portfolio committee. And I think, honorable members, as we are about to close our meeting, I think we have considered these presentations, honorable members, and deliberations thereof. And I want only to just, present some of the issues that have been raised by honorable members, especially through their questions to the department, and of course, the responses of the department. I think, honorable members, firstly, I think we all agree, honorable members, that our country demonstrate the strong policy alignment with the Agenda 2063 and the SDGs and SADC priorities. And we're saying we remain concerned about the persistent implementation gaps, and particularly where national ambitions have not sufficiently translated into outcomes on the ground. And we're also, honorable members, note the challenges such as slow economic growth, the high unemployment, especially among youth, inequality, infrastructure constraints, and uneven institutional capacity continue to limit impact. But also, honorable members, we also note that the HOD, the head of Department Performance Management and Development Systems, is well structured and increasingly compliant. I think that's what we have said, honorable members. But however, this compliance has not consistently translated into improved service delivery, strong consequence management, or visible accountability. And that's why we are looking at a detailed breakdown in terms of the departments and also the DGs and HODs that are not in the tablet, in the columns. They've said they are partially in terms of their performance. But of course, honorable members, the particular concerns remains the continued misalignment of some HOD performance agreements and national priorities, and the weak linkage between the Auditor General findings and performance outcomes, and the limited evidence that poor performance lead to contractual and or disciplinary consequences. We're saying we need to see strong disciplinary consequences to those that are not performing. But also, I think the honorable members have also in their inputs have raised the high number of acting HODs that continues to undermine the stability, the accountability, and the long-term planning, particularly in critical service delivery departments. But we also note, honorable members, with concern, the uneven application of performance evaluation standards between national and provincial government, which weakens the credibility in terms of these departments. But also, honorable members, we across the agenda 2063 and SDGs and SADC initiatives, the committee have identified coordination challenges and data limitations, reporting delays and capacity gaps, particularly at provincial and local levels, honorable members. But we are saying we want to see, the DPME, honorable members, as well. We are saying that the revised HOD PDM's directive priority outcomes and impact-based indicators with limited reliance on activity-based measures, and therefore performance agreements must demonstrate a clear alignment, honorable members, to the NDP, which is the National Development Plan, and the MTDP and cabinet priorities. And we're saying, honorable members, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation must tighten consequence management. And we're saying, honorable members, they must formalize clear consequence management triggers, particularly linked to persistent adverse Auditor General's findings, the failure to implement audit action plans, and the chronic non-performance on service delivery targets. And with those few words, honorable members, we have noted all other issues. We are saying, honorable members, today, honorable members, the department have presented something that is within our hearts of state capacity and public trust. And we are saying that there is clear strong planning frameworks and performance systems that will always drive accountability and improve the people's lives. And honorable members will continue to track progress and work closely with the department, and they will submit, honorable members, before this portfolio committee, the report that the members have also requested. And we're saying, honorable members, now we are closing this meeting and will allow the department and also the deputy minister to exit our meeting, and will remain, honorable members. But we'd like, on behalf of this portfolio committee, to thank the deputy minister, Honorable Seiso, and the DG and the team. And we want to say to yourselves, keep up doing the good work. I know that there are challenges, but of course, we'll always guide yourselves, and we will also always will criticize yourselves, but constructively, so that we improve and make sure that we improve the people's lives and we deliver services as expected. And we want to thank you, all of you, honorable members, and the department, and will request that we remain, honorable members, and allow the deputy minister and also the team of planning, monitoring, and evaluation to exit our meeting. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. We're doing so.
Honorable members, I've requested that we only remain and allow the team, the DPME and the deputy minister, to exit the meeting, because, honorable members, there's an issue before this portfolio committee that we must finalize. There's a letter from the House Chair that have been copied to the Speaker of Parliament and also the Chief Whip of the largest party. There was a programming meeting on the 12th that myself and Mendu have followed, and the Speaker in the meeting requested the House Chair to write to this portfolio committee, especially myself, and understand where is the NSE bill, how far we are, and what is the progress report. And of course, honorable members, because we've followed the programming meeting, we then, myself and Mendy, wrote a letter to the House Chair explaining all the details in terms of the process, that we then agreed that the advert was out, there was submissions, and of course we couldn't proceed with the public participation, which is the listening to the presentations to those that have submitted, and of course going to the provinces. But there was an issue in terms of the process. We met with all the stakeholders. There were issues that were raised, especially on the PFMA, and there was concerns that were raised by members in terms of that, of some of the clauses, and we're in the process of convening a meeting and deal with the motion of desirability. That, of course, the Office of the House Chair advised that we can proceed with the motion of desirability even before the public participation. And of course, honorable members, we have been asked to submit a program, which is myself on behalf of this portfolio committee, by 4 o'clock today. And of course, the honorable members will then proceed with the motion of desirability. And we've been told in the letter, we can't delay that process because we want to undertake an international study tour. And I understand the study tour has been rejected by the speaker. And the conversation that I had with the House Chair for few minutes was that we can't take a study tour just to go and learn the best practice in terms of the state-owned enterprises. And of course, that speaks to the process. So the study told all in all, honorable members have been rejected. And we must just proceed with the motion of desirability. That gives us an opportunity to either reject the bill or agree on the bill as honorable members. So I thought that it's important that we present before the portfolio committee, honorable members, and the program to proceed with the motion of desirability, I think, will be in the next PC program immediately after a recess or after the constituency weeks. And of course, after the constituency week, I think, is in line also with the long weekend of the Easter weekend, honorable members. And then we'll put this item before the portfolio committee. Thank you. Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to check the issue of, shall I call it procedure, or I don't know how else to characterize it. I think when something is written to you personally and so on, and you respond to it because it's you personally, I have no issue with that. I just want to double check whether this correspondence that we're talking to, was it in your personal capacity or your capacity as a chair of this committee? And if it's in your capacity as a chair of this committee, is it unreasonable that correspondence that affect this committee is it unreasonable to expect it to be shared with this committee? And if there's going to be correspondence that's going to go out in our name as this committee, is it unreasonable to say, can we see it and just make sure that we are covered by whatever correspondence goes in our name? To be frank, I'm very uncomfortable with things happening in my name without me knowing what is happening. And I just get report, listen, I've represented you and I've decided that this is our view and so on. So I don't know your formulation in that letter, to what extent has it really captured a collective view on things, or it's just a view that you prefer? I don't know this, Chair. So I just wanted to check whether am I unreasonable to say there must be a bit more transparency on correspondence directed to the committee and correspondence going out in the committee's name. Thank you.
the House Chair was very clear in terms of our intentions, because it was the decision of the same portfolio committee that before we proceed with this process, how best we can go and visit one of the countries either in Africa and outside Africa in terms of in terms of the best practices, in terms of the state-owned enterprises. So the letter to the House Chair was clearly to explain such, honorable members. But then the response was that we can't stop this particular bill, an important bill of Parliament, because we want to first go and study or, learn from other countries, but we must proceed with the process. And the process, of course, in terms of our last meeting, when we at the Marx building, was that let's proceed with the motion of dishonorability. And that's what is going to happen, honorable members. We will then proceed as such. But of course, we will know that also we can take a study group in terms of our responsibilities, our work, in terms of issues of planning, monitoring, and evaluation. But we were urgently want to take that study tour in terms of dealing with the bill that is before us. And we understand, honorable members, we took that Lantika tour last year, ourselves and other members. And you, at that time, Honorable Mani, you were not part of this portfolio committee. And Honorable Gama, ourselves and other members, we then took that study tour just to go and learn the best practices in terms of how SOEs are governed and managed.
Through you, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, maybe you misunderstood me. I am not questioning the merits of either side of the equation. I'm just talking about the process. That's what I'm dealing with. Just the process of correspondence to the committee and correspondence out of the committee. That's what I'm dealing with. The merits, not dealing with that.
The process out of the committee, of course, the chair is the mouthpiece of the portfolio committee or the communicator in terms of the decisions of the portfolio committee. And that's why I'm the one who wrote to the House Chair and to apply for the study tour. And of course, also, that's why also there's a letter now that gives us that opportunity to proceed with the bill without the study tour, because the bill is the bill that is before the portfolio committee. So I'm the one who write letters on behalf of the portfolio committee, and thank you.
No, Chair, I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning I'm not questioning that you must be the spokesperson for the committee. Why would I even question this? This is obvious. The issue I'm asking is what you are spokespersoning about. Is it something that just comes out of your head, or is it something that you talk to the committee about? If there is correspondence that comes to the committee, is it something for your own consumption, which you use your own discretion how you respond to it, or is it something that you bring to the attention of the committee for the committee to exercise its mind together with you and discuss with you, and then obviously will be the one that communicates the corrective view of the committee? The issue I have is something starting and stopping just around one office on our behalf. That's what I have a problem with. Do you not have a duty to bring to our attention that I've just received this letter, and then you circulate the letter, and then maybe we give comments on the letter, so that when you respond, you then respond on behalf of all of us. But right now, you just do everything all by yourself in your office. I don't think that is right.
No, thank you, Honorable Mani. I think the letter was based on the discussions we had as the portfolio committee. And then we will submit the program and proceed with this Lantika process. Thank you. With those words, honorable members, thank you very much to all of you. And the meeting is adjourned.
Recording